Well, I think the timing of that was utterly atrocious. Sorry about that. Because I think the thing only. We only went live for the last 8 seconds of it, which is not the way we usually do it, but there you go. That just proves it's live, doesn't it? I think that's all we can say about that. So, good evening, one and all. Hope there is all anyway. And welcome to Talking Songs with me, Rowan Jones. What have I got to say? Oh, sad news that Charlie Watts has just died. Yeah, my wife just came in and told me that before, and I was just told before that apparently they had already booked a different drummer to do the next tour with him because he was poorly, and yeah, he's passed away. One of the greats again. So sad news. I think was it? Am I right in saying he was the eldest member? Of the Stones, I don't know, but anyway, sad news, Charlie. So right, what am I doing today? Good question. I feel that things are actually starting to wake up again in the wacky world of music. I actually have 3 gigs between now and the next week, which I'm really looking forward to. I have to say, a little bit of trepidation because it's. I'm not really much into sport. In fact, I'm not into sport at all. So I hesitate to use the sporting metaphor, but to say that I'm not really much fit at the moment. But I shall persevere. But yeah, been doing some furious rehearsals, and yeah, looking forward to it. So I'll give you some information about those later on. But for now, that's. I'm just wondering if you'd have another guitar behind me there, but I don't know why, because there isn't a guitar behind me. Or is there? Oh, it's the other side. It's that one. Sorry, I'm muttering to myself now, aren't I? Right, okay, so I'm going to sing a little song here. And this is, it's again, talking about metaphors in songs, the use of rain and weather and, stormy weather. And I can't stand the rain and all that sort of stuff. And this is one I wrote in that vein, and this is called It Never Rains on My Party. It never rains on my party. Losers never knocking at my door. Everything goes right for me. It's you don't love me anymore. If I won the lottery, had more money than I could spend, it wouldn't change a single thing, 'cause happiness is priceless in the end. I would buy you a Ferrari, and if I could, a private plane. I'd buy you a house in Mauritius, but nothing would ever be the same. If I could buy the finest clothes, the latest fashion, full of style, I'd probably manage to look okay. but I still could not make you smile. Something's gone away, but something is lost. Where is everything that we had? Tell me what happened. Why is the ending so sad? Now it always rains on my party. The blues is forever at my door. Everything goes wrong for me, 'cause you don't love me anymore. A bit of bluesy stuff. You have to imagine, of course, in the middle of that, there's sort of moody saxophones on one side, and there's me playing a wild guitar solo and doing all the Robin Trower faces in the middle. Or else you can just hear it acoustically. It's up to you, really. So, over to my guest for today. Where are you? John, speak to me. It's Mr. John Clarke. Here you are.
Evening.
Good evening, John. How are you doing, mate?
Wow, that was a fabulous song. I was enjoying
Thank you.
jamming along with it. Sorry I hadn't got a saxophone there, but it was still sounding pretty good.
Thank you. Glad you liked it. So, John Daddy-O Clarke. Well, we know that Daddy-O comes from the sun, which just seems like a reasonable. It's a reasonable nickname, I think. Because John was telling me that there seem to be a lot of John Clarkes on the music scene. I didn't think there were many Roland Joneses on the music scene, except there's one with the same name as me exactly in terms of the spelling and everything on Spotify, which was really irritating, but there you go. So,
No,
John.
but not as handsome.
Oh, good grief. What a kind man you are. What a kind man. So, John, when did music start for you?
It started when I was 5 years old, and my brother got a guitar because he was into skiffle music. And basically, he threatened that if I went anywhere near his guitar, he would break my neck. Now, if anything is more designed to
Make you
make
want to
that
do
an irresistible object. So I used to play with the guitar laid flat on the bed and
Right.
move the fingers up and down, playing tunes that I knew on it.
All
And
right.
sometime after that, my sister's husband, who could play properly, said, "No, you have to play it like that," which was a revelation. And then he came out with, "And you have to use different fingers on different strings." And to me, at 6 by then, I think this was ridiculous because there were 6 strings and he only had 5 things to do the job with. But
Right.
then it
Yeah, I
was
can see that.
classical guitar lessons from the age of 8,
Right.
and the Beatles coming out at more or less the same time.
Right.
And my parents bought a stereogram. And those early Beatles albums, you had the
Yeah.
guitars on one speaker and the voices on the other. And I worked out if you could turn the voices off and hear what the guitars were doing, then I could copy it. And I learned a lot from Fernando Saw, Carrilli, and Lennon and
Right.
McCartney that way.
Right. I mean, it's interesting you say that. I hadn't realised that they were that the stereo was so unsubtle. I mean, my first recollection of stereo was one of our neighbours, and he was one of those sort of hi-fi buffs who had a hi-fi, and the only thing he used it for was either classical music or playing an irritating thing where a train went from one side of the room to the other.
I have that record.
And yeah, somebody was telling me a while ago that apparently in the 60s that the stereo mix was often done by the assistant, because nobody bought stereo records, or very few people did. So the main mix was done by the serious engineer, and that's why they were all remastered at a certain stage and remixed, because it was such a. I mean, I still have my original framed copy of the Beano album in the studio here.
Oh, is that in mono?
It is in mono, yeah. It is, yeah. Yeah, 1966 in mono. Is it 66? So okay, so you've gone through Fernando Saw and Lennon McCartney. How old are we now? We're about 12
Oh,
now,
but
aren't we?
well, before that, I'd entered a talent competition at a holiday camp,
Right.
stood on a chair and sang "What do you want to make those eyes at me for?" the old Emil Ford and the Checkmate song, and won. So this
Excellent.
was an excellent introduction to the wonderful world of showbiz.
I love that. I love that. I have one memento of that sort of era for me, which is slightly different to your experience, but it was my first paid gig, and I was required to sing "How Beautiful Are the Feet" from The Messiah for a play on Radio 4, and I got paid for doing it, and I got paid about 8 guineas for what was a 25-second piece of music. And I can remember at the time, I think I was about 11 at the time, working out what that worked out at, if I could get an hour's work per week. And it was something else. But it's written, the whole thing is broken down into sort of reproduction costs and stuff like that, and then blah 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 blah, and then it's all in guineas. It's rather sweet. Right. Okay. So you've been winning a talent competition in Butlins or one of those places, and so what happened then?
Well, it was just the thrill of having people listening to what you were playing and enjoying it, and that's
Right.
never left me really. And my mother had quite a lot of heart problems. She was one of the first people to have an artery taken out of her leg to bypass a
All right. Yeah.
blockage. And when she was in convalescent places, I used to go along and take my guitar and play to the people on the wards,
Right.
and somehow they got better, even after that. So it's just always. I mean, family parties were the thing. Everybody had their own party piece that they used to sing,
Hmm.
and there was one called the Record of Mary Jane that my Auntie Sue and Uncle Ernie used to do, and they'd sing it in two different keys simultaneously, and people really joined in loudly in order to drown them out at the end of it. But
That's
I
brilliant.
took the song years later and taught it to the children in the Kent schools that I was teaching the ukulele in, and they absolutely loved it because there were rude bits in it. But you'd I
That's
can't claim
lovely.
to have written that, but I certainly enjoy playing it.
That's brilliant. Okay, so what about songwriting then? When did you start writing?
I think the first one that I can remember writing was a song about Batman when I was about 10. And in Gotham City, in Gotham Town, there are two guys of great renown because they stop the crooks from all their robbing. They call this pair Batman
Batman
and
and
Robin.
Robin. Excellent.
And
Excellent.
later on, there was a Pink Floyd song that you might know goes, and my mum said, "That sounds like a policeman walking." And I said, "I can make up something that sounds more like a policeman walking than that." And I wrote a song called Sid McMagnus, the Dancing Policeman. And
And all the rest is history.
well, it was all downhill from that.
Excellent. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, then, John, what are you going to sing for us first?
Um, Almost feel as if I should play Sid McMagnus, the Dancing Policeman, but I won't. This is this is a song called Hiding Place,
Okay.
and it's an attempt at a realistic love song. Is give you, untainted by what I hope for in return. But there's nothing that this world has made me live through that remains unchanged by what I've learned from you, and the love I have for you is mangled at the best by pride and broken honesty. It stumbles at the test. And the life that leads me knows so many turnings. It twists its way through compromise and doubt, never worthy of the prize, and yet discerning that you are all that I cannot live without. And the love you have for me is more than I can hold. It reaches out its arms to me and soothes this shattered soul. Soothes this shattered soul. And I know, yes, I really know, that my heart has found its hiding place with you. And I know, yes, I really know, that my heart has found its hiding place with you.
Lovely, John. Absolutely lovely. What I
Thank
mean,
you.
well, very interesting because your approach is quite. I mean, I think I would have guessed that you had classical guitar training at some point from just listening to before you actually told me that you had gone through it. But in the way that you structured that song, the way you play the chords in it, you don't approach it as a like a self-taught guitarist would. The voicings
Oh,
on it
well,
are so.
Mr. Stevens in East Ham would be very pleased to hear that.
It has had a lasting effect. And when you, I mean, when you approach that song, I mean, what was the story behind it? Did you start off with a melody? Did you start with a lyric, or did you start with a chord sequence, or what?
I started with the words, and once you've got the first verse, then that gives me the tune.
Yeah.
So first, write the first verse, then you get the tune, then you write the other verses. Well, that's a way that I often work.
Mm.
It's
But when you say you write the first verse, so you wrote the words with some chords, or you wrote the
no, I wrote the words on a piece of paper with a
just on a piece
pen.
of paper, right? With
Yeah,
no music at all. Okay, so
no,
you approach it from a poem standpoint, virtually.
yeah, really.
Yeah.
One of the things they taught us at O level, we were studying the works of Schubert and Schumann and people like that who
Mm.
used to set the romantic poets like Goethe and Heine and all that.
Mm.
So they definitely started with the words and then steered the music to interpret what the words were saying
Right.
in their
Oh, that's lovely.
timeless way. And I
Yeah.
I learnt a lot from studying those.
That's interesting because so far on this on this series of interviews, um, the only person who's actually made any references to classical music was Earl Oakin, who when I said who was the most influential songwriter for you, and he said Tchaikovsky. So now, now we're up to Schubert and Schumann. So that's interesting move. Um, do you,
He's one of
do you
my Facebook friends.
never speaks, never sends messages? I know they're all the same.
No,
Um,
no.
that would be worrying. Um, do you do you do you approach when you've got that though? I mean, what you were playing there wasn't, most guitar players would pick up and play a, a chord or something like that. But you've got a you've almost got like you've got a constructed background to the words before you've even got as far as working the melody out. Really, how does that come about?
Um, well, basically, what I do is I get some cat's bones that have been dead for years, and I throw them on the ground and see what comes up. And
Right, yeah.
it's one of those things that they asked Paul McCartney how he came up with it, and he said that he's still trying to work it out himself, and that's what keeps
Right,
it
okay.
interesting. It's,
Well, I have
if
to
I
say,
tell everybody how it's done, they'll all be doing it.
I doubt that very much. But on the other hand, I do recollect you did mention runes in our previous conversation, so I think I tend to go along and believe the cat bone story, to be honest. But of course, it was Bowie, wasn't it? He used to do that thing with torn up words and assemble
I
lyrics.
believe so.
Yeah, don't quite get
But
that
that was a
myself.
god awful small affair.
Okay, so who do you listen to when you're not playing? Anybody in
Well,
particular, or you?
if you could see my walls, you'd be appalled. There are pictures of the Beatles and quite a lot of Roger Dean Yes covers. As my brother took me to a gig when I was 15 at the Dagenham Roundhouse to see
Mm,
Yes, because
mm,
he's a photographer,
right,
and he'd taken some pictures of them, and we actually got to meet them in the dressing room,
right,
and it had a profound effect on me good to see someone whose music I'd listened to were actually real people.
yeah.
That I mean, it was a terrible dive, but they were absolutely fantastic, and
Mm,
they're still going. Those of them that are
they
still
have,
alive, and it's
yeah.
amazing.
I did actually notice. Funny you should say that when we were talking yesterday, that behind your right shoulder, I did see something with "yes" written on it, with the logo, the swirling
Yeah,
logo,
that's
as part of the collection.
I love if I'm sitting wondering what to do when I'm in front of the microphone, I could look at the walls, and there's just so many fantastic images there
Mm.
that you can sort of lose yourself in that. And
You know
I
he's
can
turned.
see this, but you can't.
You know he's turned to architecture, don't you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you've
It's been
seen
doing
some.
that for years.
Yeah,
You can get yourself a nice pod. I think someone should manufacture and they go down. They'd probably be a lot nicer than these yurts and things. But
he also, I many years ago, there used to be a club above Ronnie Scott's. They had a rock club, which was called Upstairs at Ronnie's, and I played there in the 70s, and the interior design had been done by Roger Dean,
oh,
and what it was the because it was taken from that era when people were like sitting on cushions at gigs and things like that, pre-punk, and basically what it was that they had a sort of if you imagine that you had foam rubber sort of covered like big cushions,
mm,
but built like contours, so they went up the wall, so they were stepped, but they were all curved. So it was all very much like like his architecture and like his drawings. It was all very. There weren't any sharp edges to it, but the whole place was done out like that. It was quite bizarre, but yeah, quite interesting. Um, so, but what about that? What about other songwriters? Because I mean, they obviously they are songwriters, but not in the.
to be perfectly honest, especially in my formative years, I decided not to listen to people like Simon and Garfunkel and John
Right.
Denver and
Right.
John Renbourn and Bert Yance. I
Right.
decided I was not going to listen to that because I would just wind up copying them.
Right.
This is the arrogance of youth. I mean, you don't need anybody else writing the sounds of silence. It's already done. I mean, some artists open doors for you and others close them because, right, we've done that. You know, you don't need to do that. But
Right.
with
Okay.
Yes, it was just so inaccessible because I couldn't copy it.
Right.
So it sort of led me off to find out what I could do. And so, I mean, more recently, no less an artist than Reg Muris contributed an entire word to one of my songs. I don't know if he's expressing a royalty for it, but there was a word and he said, you should change that word. I said, well, what do I change it to? And he gave me a suggestion and I use it gratefully.
And the word was?
Well, if I get the chance to play the song, I'll perhaps let you guess.
Right. Okay. Well then, okay, it's going to be that sort of interview, is it? I'm gonna have to win points here.
I didn't mean it like that.
No. I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I like the idea of somebody saying, "Who was it you said contributed this word? No less a man than
Reg Muris. You've never heard of Reg Muris? Then you should have him on your show.
Clearly not. No idea. I don't even. I wouldn't know how to tell it, let alone anything else. Who is he then?
Is he one of the nation's foremost songwriters? You look up Reg Muris. He's played at Cropredy. He's played all over the place. Based down in Devon. His manager is Katie Whitehouse, who also manages Charlie Dore, who, if you haven't heard of, you should be taken out and shot.
You're being very aggressive about this, John. Not an attack.
I was in a duo with his manager a while back, and one of the songs we sang was the first one we did, the Hiding Place.
All right.
But,
okay.
Sounds even lovely with Katie singing it.
Right.
But onward.
Okay, then. Well, let's have another song.
Right. This is a song about someone who I've only heard but not seen. Lazing by the fire like a displaced draft excluder that has been in the wars, dreaming of a cousin cat in far off West Bermuda while you're sucking your paws. Any grateful cat would go out, catch a mouse, be a credit to his house, always use his cat box or the garden, but not you, no, not you. Yowling in the garden, you invite your friends for breakfast, your unsavoury chums. I'm trying to watch the telly, you insist I rub your neck first while displaying your bum. Any grateful cat would go out, catch a mouse, be a credit to his house, always use his cat box or the garden, but not you, no, not you, 'cause you're singing it meow, 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 Archie the cat. Eating crunchy morsels and you surely get no thinner, and you molt in the bath. I wonder what would happen if you had to hunt your dinner. I believe you would starve. Talking to the vet, he says that you're well past your prime. Says it's only a matter of time till you're in that morgue for mangy moggies. He means you. He means you, 'cause you're singing it meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 Archie the cat. You're not a kitten cat, you're just a scabby cat. And if you smell a rat, you blow your nose.
The Archie song, excellent, well done. You did mention the cat song yesterday. I didn't see that one coming yet though, but no, that's good. It's do you do you find that ideas for songs come easily or not, or just leap out when they do, or
They leap out when they do. There are occasions where I'll be asked to write something, sort of commissioned, and then you just sit down and get on with it. Like I wrote a set of songs for an American company. They were doing a radio drama adaptation of the Screwtape Letters.
all right,
And I wrote 11 songs for it, and they paid me handsomely and didn't use a single one of them, because it turned out that someone on the cast also wrote songs, and so obviously they got first dibs on it.
right.
But I do consider them to be amongst my finest work, although hardly anybody's heard of. So I might let them out in some form or other.
Well, if you've not, I don't know. Depends. It depends what your contract was for the ownership of them, doesn't it? Really. I don't know. I don't know how that would work out. But that's nice. I like the idea of that. In fact, I was only talking to somebody the other day about the Screwtape Letters. Anything you mentioned to me when we were talking yesterday about some work you were commissioned to do, which was writing music for film.
Oh yeah, that was with the Scripture Union. They did videos usually in 4 episodes for Sunday schools and things like that. And we did one on Joseph. There was Exodus. There was one about St. Peter, and one with Abraham, which was great fun because it had Katie Kavanagh, who was in Coronation Street sometime later, and David Grant.
All right.
And the particular fun with that one was what they used to do was they would send you a rough cut of the video and the script and say, right, we want something to go under this bit of dialogue.
Yeah.
But for the last one, they said, bring your instruments, come to the studio, and we'll Mickey Mouse it. Right. And I thought, what does this mean? And it's apparently you watch what's on the screen and you make something up to fit it.
Yeah.
And they record it onto the actual video. And it was fascinating, especially when it got to Sodom and Gomorrah, where I had to do the destruction of this city in 15 seconds using as many noises and sounds as like. It was absolute ball I doing that. And that's beginning to miss those days. The last thing I got asked to write like that was by a company called Deaf Animation World, who wanted, this sounds good, doesn't it? A song for World Deaf Animation Day. And it was to basically encourage people to do sign language.
Right.
So the people that they want to learn sign language are not deaf people who couldn't hear the song anyway.
Right, yes.
But they're encouraging the people that could hear it to go and learn it. So I don't know if any did, but I was really pleased to see that I think it was over 5,000 people watched it.
Right.
And there was some Mickey Mousing involved in that as well as a theme song. So I knew what to do. It was great.
That's brilliant. So what current projects have you got on? Anything commissioned? Or are you planning to do?
I'm planning to get back into playing in public again because I've done quite a lot of Zoom things, including guitar and ukulele teaching, which but I've just retired from that, so I'm a loose cannon ready to be unleashed on the world. So hopefully with the tens of thousands of people that are watching this, they'll see what they've been missing, and I'll be inundated with offers and
and request for your presence. That would be good. What about you mentioned the ukulele? When did you take up the ukulele? Was that a relatively recent
When
thing?
I was 21, my friend Rob Wilding, who I shared a house with in Barnsley, we were
Mm.
up in college up there, bought me a ukulele, and so I wrote some songs on it then, and then the bridge fell off, and that was the end of that until 2013, where I'd been retired for a bit, and my youngest daughter, who's known as the badass job fairy, because she's very good at getting people jobs, said you should go and do some teaching. Just do an hour a week or something.
Mm.
And I went to Kent Music and did an interview there,
Mm.
playing the guitar. And he said, "Would
Mm.
you prepare to teach the ukulele?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do that." And I
Yeah,
wound
why
up,
not?
instead of an hour a week, doing 11 schools and covering 400 miles a week.
Oh God.
And it was absolutely fantastic. It's the best job I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was great.
What sort of
But
age group?
I've primary school.
Right.
That's I absolutely love it, because you go in and you're everybody's granddad, and granddads can get away a lot. You don't have to be cool and hip and trendy. It's just,
Right.
oh, when you get to my age, you can't remember anything, and then you see if they can remember anything. You know that
Right.
business, they say that if you walk into a room and you have to ask yourself, why did I come into this room? They say that that's a sign of dementia. So I asked the kids, do you ever walk into a room and you don't know why you've gone into it? So, yeah, that happens all the time. So obviously in Kent, there are generations of
I've
children that
already.
have got early onset dementia at the age of 8. It's terrible.
Must be in the water. Must be something. It's an interesting thought. Yeah, are we all? Maybe we should move swiftly on from that topic. I mean, you were saying about making noises and making bouncing the soundtrack. Were you using other instruments as well, or just guitar and
Guitar and a
boxes?
synthesizer.
Right.
There was one great one where Scripture Union wanted an ident they were going to use at the beginning of their
Mm,
films. And the film was, it was a line being cut through something with
mm.
flames leaping out of it, and then it lit their logo, which was
Right. Okay.
a lamp.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I think we know what to do with this.
Mm.
Obviously, be it sort of sounded to me like Also Sprat Zarathustra, a long note and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
something, bam. So I thought,
Yeah.
stick along those lines. But I thought, what are we going to do for a sound for that? So I thought, well, we'll strike a match in front of the microphone. Well, it just
Right.
sounded stupid. So I
Right.
thought, 2 matches. In the end, we wound up with, I think it was 16 matches, bound round with a rubber band, striking that, and it went. And they slowed that down to make it fit, and then it was this chord on the end of it.
Oh,
And they
lovely.
said at the end of it, "Do you want a fee for this or a royalty every time we use it?" So I said, "Right, I'll go for the royal." No, I said, "I'll go for the fee." And I got some figure for that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they never used it. So it's a smart move in that case.
Excellent. Excellent.
Un-
Yeah.
unlike my friend, unlike my friend Julian Marshall, whose friends asked him in to play. Well, he thought piano on a record. When he got
Mm.
in there, they'd really jiggered this piano up. They put spoons in it and hammers
Right.
and had no. And he sort of played this thing on it, and they said to him, "Well, we're pretty hard up. Do you want a fee or a royalty?" And he said, "I'll take a royalty."
Right.
And the record was Money by the Flying Lizards, and it makes
Right.
him thousands of pounds every
Yeah.
year. But it gets
Excellent.
played
Yeah.
all over the place, so you never
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think it was. Yeah, it was Star Wars, the first Star Wars film. They did it on a relatively low budget, whatever that means, I don't know. But it was a
Mm.
relatively low budget, and Alec Guinness was the only person who said he'd take a percentage on future earnings. And so now
He did all right.
He did incredibly all right out of it, no doubt about that. Yeah, it's a thing about. We were talking about this the other day about the whole thing about royalties, and you know this thing about, like, in the States. I'm not sure whether it's been changed now, but it used to be the case that you weren't allowed to sing "Happy Birthday" in a restaurant because it was still under the original copyright of the writers.
Yeah, Paul McCartney owns it, actually.
What, "Happy Birthday"?
Yep.
Because it did belong to. It was two sisters who wrote it originally.
Yeah, and the original words were, "Good morning, dear friends. Good morning, dear friends. Good morning, good morning, good morning, dear friends." Because they were teachers at a school that was in the middle of nowhere. And when, the kids didn't know each other out of the school. So that was the way that they made them all feel welcome when they all came in together. And then it got altered.
Is that what it changed from there? Well, that's a new one on me.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Just don't get me started on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I'll try not to.
Bad.
I tried to think what the implication of that was. Okay, then, John. Well, I think it's time for song number 3.
Well, thank you. This I wrote this song for my mum because it was about her, really. She went a bit strange when my father died and got into the business of clearing away all his stuff and getting rid of his pipes and his suits and everything. But then she did something really unusual, which you'll hear about in the song. But the sad thing about it was, I recorded it and I was a bit ill, and I phoned her up on the Monday, which was when I always went to go and see her, and said, I can't come today, Mum, because I've got a cold and it won't be good if you catch it. And she never heard it. Oh. So here it is. It's called "The Dark Blue Dressing Gown." Okay. She's packed his life into black plastic sacks. For the sake of sweet charity, she holds nothing back, but wishes he was here to help her to choose which dreams to hang on to and which ones to lose. But she can see it so clearly on the arm of his chair, the dark blue dressing gown that he used to wear. The hem's all uneven, there's marks on the sleeve, and there are tears on her face as she struggles to breathe him in. For it's full of the scent of all she thought had gone, and it triggers a memory of their favourite song. And she'd go through it all again if she had the chance. She picks up the dressing gown and begins to dance. Holding its softness, she's holding it close, as she fills up her empty arms with what she needs most. And her song is so simple, so gentle and sweet. There is love in each fibre as she shuffles her feet. But she won't build a temple, she won't build a shrine to the fast fading memory of what hung on the line. So she picks up the dressing gown with the marks and that snag. Now it's there for someone else in the black plastic sack. She's packed his life into black plastic sacks.
Hang on, I just muted you. That was brilliant, brilliant, excellent, excellent. I wasn't
Thank you.
expecting it, which was, yeah, wow. So what do you feel about I mean, I do you get much contact with other musicians in your area or on the internet?
Well,
Anything?
there's all kinds of things going on with Zoom meetings.
Mm,
There's a thing that goes out on Sunday nights where there's people from all over the country getting to share songs,
mm,
and struggling to think what that's called. But a couple of folk clubs that I go to um, also have been having meetings. In fact, there was
right.
one, they've been getting quite good numbers for the Zoom meetings, and then they opened to the actual venue again, and about 5 people turned up.
Yes.
They preferred staying indoors. So anyway, hopefully that's going to be opening again on the 1st of September. So that will be
Yeah. I've
perhaps they'll
talked to
get used to it. People are scared, aren't they? It's
they
sad.
are, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I was talking to. I've done a few gigs over the last week or two, and there's been sort of a lot of the sort of managers of the place have said there's still quite a reticence for people. They don't feel quite comfortable about it. And there was a piece in the paper this morning written by Jenny Clare, and she was saying the same sort of thing, that she started doing, her stand-up routines and stuff like that, and when she's going back to do festivals and stuff. But she's still not entirely comfortable about it, and even if people are wearing masks and they are maintaining social distancing, etc., she's still a little bit nervous about it. And I think we all are a bit, because it's been a long time without it being normal, really.
I wonder if it was the same in the Reformation. Or no, the Restoration. Yeah, when they were allowed to go back into theatres after all the years of Oliver Cromwell outlawing Christmas. It must have been
Right.
a bit of a shock there.
I thought you. I wasn't expecting that. I thought you weren't going to say. Well, I wonder if it was like that after the war. You've lost
I'm
me.
not. I'm not implying that you would remember the restoration of the Monica Road.
No, I realise that. I
Let's,
realise that. Yes, I know I'm slightly older than him, but not that much. Yeah, it's a sort of. Yeah, but it is that reticence, and I don't know. I mean, I'm still happier going to the pub and sitting outside rather than sitting inside. If that's that's the feeling I get. I went to the cinema on Sunday for the first time in a long, long time, and it's a small cinema in the middle of Manchester. But everybody was like, we were sat here, and then there were 3 seats before the next people were sitting, because it was all numbered tickets, so it was all quite good, and that was quite cool. But yeah, I think we're still feeling a bit of reticence about it. Do you find when you were talking about folk clubs? I mean, I don't think I've been to something that would be described as a folk club for, I don't know, probably 40 years.
They couldn't afford you now, could they?
Very cheap, man. What what constitutes folk music these days? This is what puzzles me.
I think it
what's a-
puzzles all the people that go there.
right? Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I
That's
can handle that.
that's the fact you go in and you never know. I mean, you can have some idea where there's some people that enjoy playing the same songs every week,
Hmm.
and but in days when I was in a group, there was a pub up in London called the Cock Tavern,
Hmm.
and it was a fantastic West Indian guy called Rodney used to
Hmm.
run it, and you'd expect him to be singing songs from the West Indies, but instead
Hmm.
he used to sing Both Sides Now and You Ain't Going Nowhere. And he would sing those every week, and it was his club. He was running it. He could sing what he liked. But once
Do you
when
know,
we were tuning up, we sang those two songs. And he said, "No, don't sing that. I'll have nothing to sing."
do you know, I've forgotten that. I can remember because I used to go to a folk blues club in Swansea when I in my teens, and there were guys who stood up, mainly guys, I have to say, who stood up and sang the same songs every week. And there was one guy who always stood up and sang "Martin Said to His Man," and then we all joined in the
I'm on
chorus.
fire.
Exactly, exactly. And that idea that you would get up. I mean, I am completely the opposite. If I go do it, I've not done an open mic night for some time, but if I was doing an open mic night, I'd make a note of what I'd played. Did I do that one last time? All right, well, I won't do it this time. Just to make sure that it's not singing that same bloody song again. But are there
I
still
remember a
people in
guy
folk
in
clubs
Sheffield called Pete Smith,
yeah,
and he'd stand up and he'd say, "Right, okay, Pete, one song." And he'd start this song and then he'd forget the words after the first verse. He'd say, "Oh, I'll sing you another one." And then he'd do that. And he'd get through about the beginnings of 4 songs. But the
right?
next week, he would start with the second verse. So it would take you weeks to hear these
The
songs.
entire
It was it's a wonderful shtick.
yeah, it is. The thing I experienced when we went to the States a couple of years ago, and I was determined to do as much playing as I could, and we'd arranged so that we were going to arrive in New York, and I'd arranged to go to an open mic night, and I got there and spoke to the woman I emailed beforehand, and she said. I said, "Oh yeah, it's great to be here." I said, "Well, how many songs each do we get?" And she said, "Well, it depends how many people turn up. Last week there were just everybody did like 3 songs." So there I am, and ready for my first gig in New York, and loads of people turned up. And she said, "I'm really sorry, but we're only going to have to allow everybody to do 1 song each." And it was a very strange little bar because it was very, very long and narrow with a little stage at the front. And no bar actually in this room, and she, as the compere, sat alongside the stage facing the audience, and she introduced the first guy on, and he sang a song that lasted 8 3/4 minutes. And it was one of his own, and it wasn't brilliantly well structured. It didn't have a chorus. It just had verse after verse. And the poor woman was sat there just trying to maintain, the wedding cheek smile. And I could see that she was gradually collapsing inside. Oh, God, it's just... So, yeah, there was all those sort of things. Because, Martin Said to His Man could run for 5-6 minutes without any difficulty at all, couldn't it? Let's be fair about it. Now you've brought something back there. The other thing about the club that I used to go to is that there were no lights in there. All the lighting that was on the in the entire room was one of those lamps that they have this sort of dartboard in the little box thing on the wall, and you open the doors up, and above them they always have a light. And that was the only light that was ever on in the room. So the invited act, and then we had some serious people. I mean, John Renbourn played there. Mississippi Fred McDowell played there. Who else played there? Reverend Gary Davis played there. Some big names of that era. And they all stood in front of this light. So all you saw was a silhouette of it. Unbelievable. And I saw Gordon Giltrap there in the late 70s. And I met him at some sort of music fair about 25 years later. And I was introduced to him, and we were chatting a bit. And I said, "We have met once before, actually." And he said, "Where was that?" I said, "Well, it's the Adelphi Club in Swansea." And I'd gone in the bathroom when you were there writing his set list on a piece of toilet paper. And he said, "Hey, you're right." And he didn't deny it. I thought that was quite very honest of him. So, oh God, you've taken me back to a different era, John.
Goodness me.
So listen, are you going to give us one more song?
I would love to.
Good.
This is called "I Will Care for You."
Okay.
When there's anything but loving on your mind, I will care for you. When all the thoughts you have are cruel and unkind, I will care for you. When it looks as though I'll never find a way to untangle all your problems in a day, stop for a moment, hear the words I always say. I will care for you. When you feel as if you've made it on your own, I will care for you. When you're sitting easy on your precious self-made throne, I will care for you. When you're surrounded by 1,000 flattering tongues and feel that you're the best at all that you have done, stop for a moment and recall this little song. I will care for you. When your heart believes the world's forgotten all you've done, I will care for you. When your memory of me has faded with the sun, I will care for you. When you count the cost of hollow victories you've gained, can't remember who's to thank and who's to blame, I'll still be waiting in the dark with this refrain. I will care for you. I will care for you. I will care for you.
Lovely. Is that the song that you said somebody was interested in recording?
Yeah, it's a guy called Nick Dow.
Hmm.
Heard it at it was a Deal Folk Club's Zoom meeting on Friday that he was
Right.
zooming into.
That's nice. I mean, it's nice that he wants to record it. I think it's good. It's good. It's a good song. John,
Thank
thanks
you.
thanks for thanks for talking to us and playing your song. Some lovely stuff. The one about you, the dressing gown is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and very much a surprise. It did take me by surprise, that one. It's lovely. So yeah, thanks, and best of luck with your relaunch into the in front of the public, the real live public.
Well, this will
gonna
be the
going
springboard.
It's kind of. I hope. Are you going to be doing it solo? Are you going to be doing it with other musicians, or what? What's your plan?
The plan is to do it with me at the moment, and although I was contacted by somebody today, a lady who thinks that she might like me to accompany her, but we've not met, and I've now lost her phone number. So,
Well, she may be watching. You never know.
that would be good.
Well, best
I'm
of luck with
open
it
to
all.
offers.
Thanks a lot, John. Thanks
Right,
for
it's a
playing
pleasure.
your songs, and thanks for chatting to me. And best of luck with it all. Okay.
Right, thanks
Cheers,
a lot.
mate.
It's been a pleasure.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. Interesting songs, really, really tasty, but also quite different. You can't say I don't bring you variety of songwriters. Look at that. I mean, yeah, very, very nicely structured songs, nice lyrics. Yeah, good stuff. Nice one, John. Right then. What have I got to tell you about? Oh, a few things. Next week I've got Ian Roberts on. He will be telling us about some of his songwriting escapades. But before that, if I'm out on the road, it's rather nice actually. So I'm going to do a little bit of self promotion here. Thursday evening, I'm going to be down in Oswestry in the Herman Chapel. It's a lovely art centre in Oswestry. It's an old Welsh, probably a Methodist or a Congregationalist chapel that's been converted into an arts venue, and beautifully kitted out with a lovely PA system, and yeah, really looking forward to it. So I'll be playing that on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock. It'll be myself and Bo Lee on bass and Ian Mellor on percussion. Bo and Ian used to work together with Victor Brooks many years ago, and both really fine musicians. And with this is it was a venture we'd started to get together just before lockdown blew us all out of the water, but we're getting it together now and taking it out on the road. So that's Roland and the Movable Feast at the Herman Chapel on Thursday in Oswestry. On Saturday I'll be back in Stockport at the Arden Arms. It'll be myself and Bo on bass, and on the drums we've got the wonderful Paul Burgess, who many of you will know if you're from the area, and many of you know from outside the area will know him as being part of, from 1970 something or other, part of 10cc's band. Great player, absolutely great player. So there'll be the three of us, and there may well be other people involved as well. I'm not quite sure at the moment. This has come about with relatively short notice, so we're still assembling the cast for that. And then on Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, I shall be down in Leek. Myself and Kev Farrell will be there supporting John Jenkins at the Cock in Leek. I think that starts at 7 or 7:30. I need to, I would suggest you check it up on the internet. I wouldn't like to give you duff information. So that's where I shall be over the Bank Holiday weekend, and hopefully I'll bump into a few of you out there. And if I don't, then have a lovely weekend next weekend. And I shall be back next Tuesday with Mr. Roberts, all being well. And in the meantime, look after yourselves and stay safe. Thanks for listening.